Imagine sitting by a cozy fireplace, a warm cup of coffee in your hands, as someone you trust leans in to share a story, one that feels like it was written just for you. That's the kind of conversation we're starting today on Intergenerational Connection, a channel built for those who believe that every stage of life, especially our later years, deserves to be lived with purpose, joy, and independence. If you're over 60, or even if you're just thinking about what your golden years might look like, this is a space where we share stories, lessons, and practical wisdom to help you thrive. Today, we're diving into a topic that's close to the heart: why support for old age starts with you, not your children. So, settle in and let's talk about what it means to prepare for a future that's as fulfilling as it is secure. Let me start with a memory. When I was a kid, I'd watch my grandmother, a spry woman in her 70s, tend to her garden every morning. She'd hum old tunes, her hands steady as she pulled weeds or planted new flowers. One day I asked her why she worked so hard on something that took so much time. She smiled and said, "This garden isn't just for me. It's for the days when I need to feel alive." That stuck with me. Her garden wasn't just about flowers. It was her way of staying strong, staying connected to life. And it's a reminder that support for old age begins with the choices we make long before we need them. Now, let's be honest. For many of us, especially here in America, there's this unspoken expectation that when we grow old, our children will step in to take care of us. It's a comforting thought, isn't it? The idea that the kids we raised, the ones we drove to soccer practice and helped with homework, will be there to hold our hands through our later years. But here's the reality, and I say this with love for our kids. They have their own lives. They're juggling careers, raising their own families, paying mortgages, and navigating a world that moves faster than ever. Expecting them to be our full-time caregivers isn't just unrealistic. It can strain the very relationships we cherish most. I remember talking to a friend, Margaret, who's 68 now. She raised 3 kids, poured her heart into them, and always assumed they'd be her safety net in old age. But her oldest is in California, building a tech startup. Her middle child is a nurse, working long shifts and raising 2 toddlers. And her youngest, he's traveling the world, chasing dreams. They love her dearly, but their lives are full. Margaret realized that waiting for them to take care of her wasn't the answer. Instead, she started building her own foundation, her own support for old age. And that's what we're here to explore today: how to create a life where you're the architect of your own happiness, no matter your age. So, where do we begin? Let's start with the most precious asset you have: your health. I can't tell you how many times I've heard folks say, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. It's a cliche because it's true. Health is the cornerstone of support for old age. Without it, even the biggest bank account feels meaningless. Think about it. Money can buy medicine, but only your habits can keep you strong enough to enjoy a walk in the park or a laugh with friends. Take my neighbor, Tom, for example. At 62, he decided to take charge of his health after a scare with high blood pressure. He didn't go overboard. No marathons or crash diets. He just started walking 30 minutes a day, swapped out soda for water, and made sleep a priority. Within a year, he was off his meds, and more importantly, he felt alive again. Tom's story isn't unique, but it's powerful. Caring for your health doesn't mean chasing youth. It means giving yourself the freedom to live fully without being a burden to your kids or yourself. But health isn't just about your body. It's about your mind, too. I've met too many people who let fear of illness or aging steal their joy. They worry about what might happen instead of embracing what is. A positive outlook, a sense of purpose, can transform your later years. I think of my Aunt Clara, who at 75 started a book club for her friends. They'd gather every month, sip tea, and argue about novels. It wasn't just about the books. It was about connection, laughter, and keeping her mind sharp. That's the kind of support for old age we can all cultivate, starting today. Now, let's talk about something that often gets overlooked: the role of a partner, a companion, a friend who's by your side through thick and thin. For those of us who are married or in a long-term relationship, our spouse or partner can be our greatest ally in old age. They know us in ways our children never will: the quirks, the dreams, the quiet moments that define who we are. And for those who are single or widowed, The desire for companionship doesn't fade with age. Finding a partner, someone to share life's joys and challenges, is a legitimate and beautiful part of support for old age. I'll never forget the story of Ellen, a 70-year-old widow I met at a community center. After her husband passed, she felt adrift, lonely in a way she couldn't explain to her kids. They were supportive, but they couldn't fill the void of daily companionship. Then at a dance class, she met George, a kind widower with a love for old jazz. They started as friends, then became more. Her kids were skeptical at first, worried about finances, what people might think. But Ellen stood her ground. "This is for me," she told them. Today, she and George share a home, a love of music, and a partnership that's made her happier than she's been in years. That's the power of a companion in old age. Not just someone to lean on, but someone to laugh with, to live with. Of course, we can't ignore the practical side of support for old age: money. I know it's not the most romantic topic, but it's a lifeline. As we age, our bodies slow down, and medical bills can pile up faster than you'd believe. Money for old age isn't about luxury, it's about dignity. It's about paying for a doctor's visit without asking your kids for help. It's about buying groceries or fixing a leaky roof without feeling like a burden. I think of a man named Harold, who I met at a financial planning workshop. He'd worked hard his whole life, but never saved much, assuming his kids would figure it out when he got older. Then, in his late 60s, he needed surgery. The bills were overwhelming, and he had to lean on his daughter, who was already stretched thin. Harold felt ashamed, like he'd failed her. That experience woke him up. He started budgeting, setting aside what he could, even on a fixed income. It wasn't a fortune, but it gave him peace of mind. That's what support for old age looks like: taking control of your finances, no matter how small the steps. Now let's step back and look at the bigger picture. Here in America, our views on aging have shifted. A generation ago, it was common to assume your kids would take you in, care for you, maybe even live under the same roof. But times have changed. Our kids are more mobile, their lives more complex. And honestly, that's okay. It's a chance for us to redefine what old age means, not as a time of dependence, but as a season of independence, wisdom, and joy. The three pillars we've talked about, health, companionship, and financial security, are your foundation for support for old age. They're not just about surviving, they're about thriving. When you invest in your health, you're giving yourself the energy to enjoy life. When you nurture relationships, whether with a partner or friends, you're building a network of love and support. And when you plan financially, you're ensuring that you can face the future with confidence, not fear. Let me share one last story. My friend Susan, now 72, embodies this approach. After her kids moved out, she didn't sit back and wait for them to take care of her. She took up yoga to stay active, joined a community choir where she met her best friend, and worked with a financial advisor to stretch her savings. Today, she travels to see her grandkids, volunteers at a local shelter, and lives in a small but cozy home she loves. Her kids are part of her life, but they're not her lifeline. She is. And that's the gift of preparing for old age yourself. You get to write your own story on your own terms. So what's the takeaway? Support for old age starts with you. It's about taking small, intentional steps today to build a future where you're strong, connected, and secure. It's about loving your kids enough to let them live their lives while you live yours to the fullest. And it's about embracing the truth that your later years can be some of the richest, most meaningful of all. Here at Intergenerational Connection, we're all about sharing these stories and lessons to help you navigate this journey. If this resonates with you, I'd love for you to join our community. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and let's keep this conversation going. We've got more wisdom to share, more stories to tell, and more ways to help you live your best life, no matter your age. Until next time, take care, keep building your own support for old age, and may God bless you always. See you soon.